Good evening. Welcome along again to another Zoom podcast that we're doing here on Centenary year for the Ardara GA Club, celebrating 100 years. And it's been a great celebration so far, and there are many celebrations to come. I'm joined this evening by two great warriors, hosts, supporters, people who've held positions in the club over the years and still going strong, I'm glad to say. I'll go to the senior man, that's Vincent McConnell, and below, Josie, Brennan. You're very welcome. We'll see you.
Thank you.
And Vincent, you're hearing me okay there?
I'm hearing you okay, Packie. Yes.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. All right. Well, it's been a strange year, 2021 so far, between these viruses going around and everything else. But we want to talk about the last 100 years. And of course, we weren't around for all that time, but both of you guys have been around for a long time, have been very closely associated with the club. And you've had some wonderful experiences with the Ardara club. You've had to emigrate, Vincent, for some time. You were in the UK and then you were in America, and that didn't stop your involvement either, supporting them and also doing your bits of GA abroad.
Right. Well,
Josie, I know Josie played and managed and had held positions in the club as well down through the years. So you've been very much involved. But going to you, Vincent, you know, you've been around a good bit longer than me or any of us, and I know you have quite a good memory, and you know it intrigues me to just know when you got involved with the club and started with the club, because I know the Packie area was always very strong in the early days of the Ardara GA club.
well, my longest memory, I think, is about 1948.
Right.
Been down at a game in Kentucky, and the only one thing I remember particularly that day was there was one man who was namely at the time was McConnell, and he was playing I think for Shannon that day. You know, so that's a long time ago. You know, I don't remember much about the actual game, whether it was a good game or a bad game.
Was that because Mick was a really big man? I knew him here. He was a councillor in the county council in Lifford, and I used to be down there taking pictures and things. And I met Mick Melly when he was a county councillor, and he was a very impressive man. He must have been very impressive on the football field.
Well, as far as I remember of him, he was a very big man, you know, and I don't remember much about his football prowess at the time, but he was played for the county and all that at that stage, you know, so he was a man that I would say was probably feared by many a full forward at the time, you know.
Would imagine now. You reminded me of something that I was at a game in Glenties and many years later when Kilcar had big Frank O'Donnell playing full forward for them. Yes. And he was a very impressive man. And I still remember big Frank playing for that very reason. I think just it would have been interesting to see a match between Frank and Mick Melly, full back and full forward.
It would have been, I would say that Big Frank was maybe a little taller than Mick Melly, but it wasn't as broad, you know. So Frank was an impressive man himself and a very good county player. A wee bit hard to get started.
Right.
But he got going, and Frankie Brennan used to say that when he was playing for the county at midfield, he would always just give him a tap on the ankle to get him going, and he was good after that, you know.
That seemed to be a trick from that era there, Vincent.
Yes, yeah.
So that was 1948.
Well, that's the first year that I think I remember going down to the football field, and I remember Jimmy Mooney of Packie playing as well the same day. I'm not sure who was actually playing that day.
Yeah,
I think it might have been a divisional game between the West and the Southwest, you know. I think that because Patsy Rooney of Corley was playing the same day.
Right.
I remember that as well. So, and them men are all long dead.
They are. Corley is where Eddie John Gunnigal was from, wasn't it?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
But I have, watched the games as much as I could for many years after that. I missed 11 years when I wasn't at home. So there was very good teams came up at that time, county teams especially, and I didn't see many of those games at all.
Right. Yeah. So then at what stage would you have started playing with the club?
Well, I would have started playing in 1951.
Right.
I had a minor team when we played St. Eunan's in Letterkenny in 1951 in the semi-final.
Yeah.
St. Eunan's that day, and then played Mount Charles in the final in Glenties and got hammered that day.
Right.
We had some very good players at the time, Seamus Breslin and Thomas Breslin, and
yeah,
Packie McGuire and your brother John and all. They're very good players, but they were far too strong for us that day, and
right.
We were kind of embarrassed that day, actually.
So then you turned that all around the following year in 1952.
1952, it would appear that in 1952, most of the players that played on that minor team were in their last year.
Oh, I see.
And it's always a benefit,
It is.
Yes, because they're at their strongest as minors are concerned. Now that team was, I don't remember much about Jim Faulkner, but he laid the groundwork for that team.
Yes.
And that would have been juvenile that he was involved in at that time. And we're also fortunate in that while we didn't have big numbers, some of the players were very, very talented.
Yeah.
And we had Harry Lafferty from Balbafay as well, which
That's right.
helped a lot,
He later became a county senior player.
That's right, yeah, so.
And Charlie Bennett was good at that.
Charlie Bennett was outstanding at midfield. When Stephen Thomas Breslin played midfield, and if you got the ball on Charlie, you certainly wouldn't get a kick at it. He would have it blocked before you knew where you were,
Is that right?
Yeah, he was very good at that.
Well, both Breslins were great footballers, Thomas and Seamus.
And Seamus was probably one of the most outstanding players that played for Ardara. But unfortunately, his career didn't last too long. Yeah. He went away. He was at college, but he didn't take great care of himself at the time and drifted from the game, So
both of Thomas and himself went to England at a stage, didn't they?
They did, yes. Both would have been in college, and then after college they went to England and stayed some years in England.
Yeah.
I don't know much about them during them years, So, but they were a big loss to the football club here locally, anyway, at the time.
That time, Josie, when did you get involved with the club? I know Raymond was involved. He was a prominent footballer and all that. And your father?
Well, I was playing at a bad action, young. I was only had a year to go. Minor, I was only 16, and did get care. I fractured the knee and happened one day.
You had an early retirement when I remember.
Yeah, I was in Merlin Park for 3 months, plastered to the chest.
Boys, a dear.
Middle of July, I came home from the bog and went away to play, and I didn't come home until the middle of October.
My God.
Yeah. So
I remember you were a very good footballer. I mean, I do remember you playing, and then the next thing I heard that you were injured, and
I loved the game anyway, and I was
to give it up.
Lived for it, but broke away from it. Then that put it stopped me.
Yeah.
I love football all my life and loved going to a game. I couldn't wait to get the game. Yeah.
I can't ever remember playing a match that you weren't at. When I was Ardara.
Yeah.
You could say the same for Vincent, and anytime he was at home, The supporter is a very important man in all of this too.
Oh, no, it is. Yeah. But I love football, and I'll tell you a strange one about me. Even the team wasn't going great that time I went to all the matches underage, and I knew the players coming up from under 12s, under 14s. And even if the team wasn't going well, I had an interest in these fellas to see would they make it, I was watching movements. If I had an interest in the fellow, if I thought he had potential, I would watch. I would enjoy the games. Even the club wasn't going great, I would be watching these fellas. I got a great crack out of it.
Yeah, that's a great interest. God rest poor Winter Slafferty. That'd be Harry's brother,
Yeah.
He was a great character. Like he would come into Full Park. You would know.
You're talking there about Big Frank O'Donnell, God rest him.
Yeah.
Well, John McHugh, you had played with John.
John. But I remember John. He played with our Michael, really, and
that's right. Yeah. John, Ardara playing Kilcar down the field, and the field wasn't good, as you know, that time, and a bad day anyway. And Big Frank was full back, and John was playing the half forward line.
Yeah.
And John bit his man and came in, and Frank went to stop him.
Right.
And John showed him a dummy. And Frank always wore a beret,
He did, yeah.
Wore a beret. Right. John showed him a dummy, and Frank went down in the muck, John went on in, he scored the goal, and he come back out. Frank was still there. He lifted the beret of Frank and put it over the bar.
Yeah. John McHugh is brilliant. I remember him in the county semi-final in McCool Park, and Michael was playing the same day.
Oh, Michael was a special. Yeah.
Something else,
yeah.
John McHugh was a powerful player then. He was a great man to score.
County minor, yeah.
And McHugh was a good player too, indeed.
Yeah. But John was a pipe to him, yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
We've had many good footballers.
Yes.
And should they emigrate?
Unfortunately, Michael went away too soon.
He did.
Yeah, he would have been. I remember the headlines of the paper one Monday. They played Tyrone County Minors.
Yeah.
The headline of the paper was Keeney and Donegal swamped Tyrone.
My goodness.
Yeah.
He had the only player I could compare really with him. His style was Peter Oliver, believe it or not.
Because you're right. He had that
something special,
Yeah, the action. And Peter Oliver could hit the ball very hard,
That's right.
Michael could come round with Jim McKeever, come round with the ball in the air. He was full of action. Very accurate.
There were some great players there.
Yeah.
Vincent, you had to go off then to you were involved greatly before you went away, but I always remember the game in Donegal Town. You played St. Eunice and there was a draw. That was the senior championship.
Yes.
And then there was the replay then was taking place in Donegal Town, and it was great that my father and mother went to those games, and they brought me with them. And we were in McConnell Park, and I remember that time the whole concern for leading up that game would be have the Breslins.
That's right.
Aye, and then I don't think we did have them that day.
We did. We had them. They arrived late that day.
Oh, that's what.
Just about there in time for the game.
All right, yeah.
We were concerned up until they just nearly the throw-in whether they would show up or not, but they did show up.
Yeah.
And we had some unfortunate happenings that day. In a way, it would appear that St. Eunice got a few goals that
Yeah, I remember that day. Hughie Bennett had the toothache that day.
Yes.
And I've never played a game of football with toothache, and I'll tell you something. I would imagine that if you're in goals and you have the toothache, it must be hard to concentrate on anything,
Hard to concentrate, yes.
If you have the right toothache. And there was a couple of soft goals, God rest poor Hughie. But then I remember them putting you in goals at half time. Would that be right?
That is correct, yes. That is correct.
You had a pair of black tugs on you. Would that be right?
That was, I don't remember that item, but it's probably correct as well, because I did have a pair of black dogs at the time, you know. So
I think you played with those black dogs after that too. But you had, for me anyhow, and the spectators, you had a blinder in the second half.
well, I think I was very lucky that day, and that, you know, there was one thing at that time which doesn't apply, I suppose. It didn't apply for many years after. The forward could come in and attack the goalkeeper, but with John the Saddler in front of you, you didn't have them worries.
No, that's right.
So I was fortunate in that respect that
You come in here and you go out the box. Don't pass that line there.
and it worked.
Aye.
John had the cow on a lot of players at that time, you know.
Aye. Well, it was bad luck because you had a good team, and St. Eunan's, I mean, there were county players in every corner of that team, you know, and
It was. But we were unfortunate that we didn't have Father Luke Boyle that day.
aye.
Father Luke had his last game for the club that time in the drawn game in Ballybuffet.
Oh, is that right?
That's right. And for many years afterwards, Joe Carroll said that Ardara got a point in Ballybuffet that day that we didn't get, that the umpire didn't flag. So we would have won that game if Joe was right by 1 point.
Oh, dear.
You know, so
the big guns were on the Letterkenny team at that time. I was looking through the list. That was 1855. Aye, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
And so I was 9 years of age.
You were at that time. But we were very short of players that time, because the only reason why I was on the team at that time was because of a lack of numbers.
Yeah.
We would have only had maybe, and it happened to Ardara often enough in later years, where we were only in 10 or 12 players. So in order to make up the count, you had to take on players that just weren't maybe up to a senior standard, you know.
Right.
So that would have been the only reason why I was playing that day, you know.
I would find that hard to believe on the performance you gave it.
Yeah, that was just a bit of luck. You know, so,
yeah. Well,
but
there was some good. I only got tuned into things in the year. Frankie Brennan was coming near the end of his career, you know, but James and say always said that he was a great footballer, and came out and played every day for Ardara.
He was an outstanding player, and certainly the outstanding player of his time for the club. Well, we had a lot of other very good players, and some of them came before him, like a Vinnie McHugh and them. But Frankie was good every day.
Right.
He seldom ever had a bad game, you know. But there was a few players in the county that had the Indian sign on him, sort of. Mick Kelly of Donegal Town. Frankie had trouble with Mick Kelly. And then Paddy McCain.
Mick the contractor. I mean, Mick the contractor was it?
No. Or Joe Kelly it was, sorry.
Oh, Joe
Kelly. He was a butcher in Donegal Town.
Oh, right.
And he could nearly handle Frankie every day.
Is that so?
Paddy McShane of Kilcar was another player that he found it hard to handle, but he tried to avoid them, and he would play at midfield, and it was always better for Ardara if he was at midfield, because he would get plenty of the ball, because he was a great high catcher, you know.
Yes, that's right.
So, but he gave it everything. He was an outstanding player.
By the way, Vincent, I was talking to Morris Higgerty today in Kilcar, and I was talking to him on the phone.
Yes.
I was telling him that I'll be talking to you tonight, and he says, be sure and tell you he was asking for you.
Very nice. And if you see him, you can return the compliment, you know.
A nice fellow, Morris.
Yes, yeah.
So, Josie, is there any particular games that stand out in your mind, particularly in your early days, that were impressive?
Well, the under 21 that Paul Brennan captain against Ballyshannon. They draw the first day, and the second day there was Conor Boyle 2-8. There were 3 county minors or county under 21s missing the first day.
Right.
So the straw and the Democrat was all covered with, they were making light that there'd be a cakewalk the second day. These three boys were back, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it turned out anyway, but John was going good. John McGill down Maher, a good player.
Right.
And I made one ball coming up the left wing anyway, and John went for it, and Toohey was coming.
Yeah.
But John wouldn't show the white feather. Anyway, John went down, and Toohey really only run under him. I don't think it should have even been a free, you know.
Mm.
But he was down injured anyway. Some of the boys laughed. I should rub the Democrat on him.
Rub the Democrat on him.
The Democrat followed it the week before.
Yeah.
And Ardara had the right thing. Paul Brennan came out the door, let us out to beat these fellas. And they beat them, was they? They beat. They had a good one altogether, under 21. Paul was captain, Paul Brennan.
I would claim, Packie, to have a bit of an influence on that game myself, even though I was long over 21 at the time, you know. Father Shan Galler was refereeing the game. He, to me, he wasn't giving us a fair deal, and Brennan was winning every ball at full forward, and he was being held and dragged down, and not alone did we not get a free in, but he was blowing him for overholding the ball, when in fact he couldn't get rid of it. So I went up to at half time and I told Father Shan, I told him all this, and I says, you know, we're not expecting any favors. We would just like to get fair play. And he said to me, is that so, Vincent? He said, you know, sarcastically, you know. But the game wasn't on 5 minutes anyway until the ball went into Gerald Menelis again, and he caught the ball in the air, and not one put a hand on him. And he gave us a penalty. So I must have had some, you know, he must have listened to me.
Don't think Father Sean would agree with that now.
Maybe not, but we got a goal anyway.
Yeah.
And that was certainly contributed to winning the game that day. But that was one of the best games that any of us have ever seen, as far as certainly underage competitions and even senior, because the two teams were star-studded that day. Both teams were, Ballyshannon had 9 players on the under-21 county team.
Good Lord.
And we had only, I think, maybe 1 or 2. Anthony Malloy was on the under-21 team, and I think that's the only player we had on the under-21 team that year, you know.
Yeah.
So I seem to be hogging the show here. I don't want to do that, Packie.
Oh, there's no worry. There's no worry. It's 21. Well, there've been some good under-21s around Anthony's time, all right.
Speaking about Frankie Brennan, you know, when I was very young, because I wasn't too far away, I was at all the games, and day after day, Frankie Brennan shining every day, and he could hit frees too. He was an all-rounder.
All-rounder,
hit frees, scoring all the frees and everything, along with scoring. Yeah. He was a great footballer.
He was, because I know from travelling around the country that there was great respect for him. The one person that would always ask you about.
God rest Charlie Bennett too, like you were talking about there. Charlie, great footballer too, very, very good player.
And Charlie was the berry on him too, Vincent.
Pardon?
Charlie played with the berry on him as well.
He did indeed, yes. And Charlie was a very good player. Always in the right place at the right time, you know, if you wanted to score, and Charlie would be there in a scoring position, given the ball, and he would mark it for you, you know. So,
I remember reading a report about Charlie playing for the county in Letterkenny. Josie, can you remember anything about that game that he scored? He scored some good scores that day. I think they were playing Derry. He might have been on the junior team now, but
he played on the junior team now. He played on the junior team for the county, all right, Charlie. I remember him playing, but I can't remember now much about it.
That was a report. I just wondered, he seemed to have a good game, but then he didn't seem to be.
I think Teddy might have played once or twice for that team. Teddy.
He did. I know where James was telling me about that. Teddy, he had done well too. Like Teddy was quite an experienced footballer, you know.
A hard man. Yeah.
Pressed the ball 40 yards.
Yeah.
And the old leather ball in them days.
Skill too. It is skill. What you wouldn't see too often, like that time on the run, he could chip up the ball without stooping, you know. Teddy. Famous. Yeah.
That was a great skill in those days. Like, I mean, I've been coaching that a lot in maybe recent times, but it was really a very, very odd player that could do that, you know. So
Eddie did it quite often, yeah. But his power was a big one. He was as hard to rock. Yeah.
Oh, he was. Oh, he was a very strong man.
Yeah.
And I think I said this before, but I saw him in Duncanelli one day, and his trick was to pretend he was a Duncanelli player when the Duncanelli man had the ball, and he was shouting, here. And I saw a Duncanelli man passing the ball to him, you know. He was full of tricks too.
There was one guy that he could play all the time, and that was Patsy Brogan, one of our better players, county players at the time.
That's not right.
He could play him any day they met. He always got the better of him, and nobody could understand it because Patsy was a good county player, you know.
Oh, I think I think he was my father's favourite player. You know,
is that right? Yeah, he was a very good player.
Patsy Brogan.
Yeah,
it's only say if things were going bad, if only Patsy Brogan was here.
Right? Yes, yeah.
So some feat to turn the tables on Patsy.
In the day before the Brogans playing against Ardara down the field. And if you recall, the old mesh wire was partly down, trying to give it up into the swan, you know. But the row got up anyway. And the Brogans were all involved anyway. But Josie was home from England.
Yeah.
Lovely new suit, all dressed. The row got up, and Josie cut the skip with the wire, and he left half the new suit on the old mesh wire. Josie was going to get involved anyway.
He wasn't going to hold back.
That's for sure. I remember that day well. Yeah.
Was that right? Yeah. So the tradition back in 1948. Well, there was a lot that had gone before that when we won our first county championship in 1928, and then we had a couple of Democrat Cups and all that, Vincent. Packie had a great tradition on camogie and football and everything else. There was a lot of stuff happened after the club was formed in 1921, and a lot of them were former soccer players, but they got very quickly into the Gaelic football and were performing well and at county level and everything in a short while. It was, there seemed to have been a great tradition. Were you aware of that? Like, back
I only became aware of that in later times reading about it,
Yeah.
I didn't know, and I knew John Maloney very well, who was the goalkeeper on them teams that won the county championship in the 20s,
Right.
But they all played soccer in Ardara, and they did, most of them, I think, they all turned over to the Gaelic when the Gaelic started.
Yeah.
It was, I suppose, Sean Cassidy would have been a big noise at the time in the game, and he would have been responsible for.
They went shortly after the county board got formed. Well, I suppose not that the county board. I think it was 1905, as far as I remember. Ardara's 1921. Glenties were 3 or 4 months ahead of us.
Right.
It was during that time of partition, they quickly formed the GAA and got back into the Gaelic football and the culture, and so it was an amazing time.
It was a difficult time as well for most people, because there were most of them fellas that played in the first Ardara teams would have fought in the fight for independence, and
they would. Yeah, that's true.
They wouldn't have had time to train very much at the time,
No.
So and there was out of a sense of patriotism, I would say, that they got involved in the GAA.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, that's what it looked like. And the remarkable thing about those early games, of course, it was all catch and kick. It was probably the reason for it. But a lot of the games ended up maybe 3 points to 2 or something. You know, there was no big scoring, or seldom a goal would be scored. You know, in the early days of Gaelic.
That's right. The scores seemed to be low at the time. All right.
Yeah.
That might have changed, I think, slightly in the 30s. Then.
Yeah.
Probably they were playing more football at that time, and they became more proficient at the game. You know.
Aye, that's right. And there was kind of more rules at that stage as well.
More rules, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, but we always had a big tradition in Ardara. Anyway, it was once the game was founded, there was many years when we didn't have great success, but still there was always somebody there to keep the flag flying and keep the club going. And I would say if they had any money, they probably spent it on keeping the club going. And there's a few people, and I won't name them, but most people know who they are, who did carry the club on their back for many years, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Money was scarce.
Money was scarce, and they used their own money, and you know. So
and there wasn't much training, as Packie John McNeill said. Who was it, Charlie Moody or some of them interviewed about did you train much? And he says, you were given the spade on Monday morning to go out and pare the bog.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Well, there wasn't too much training, you know.
Was it training?
No.
And I thought it was a good one there too. I came across where Tom Campbell was talking about Packie Kelly, and he was asked about the team. If you lost, he always had great quotes, Packie Kelly, you know.
Yes.
I remember being down beside him right enough, he used to stand at upper goals here, you know. And
that's right.
And if the things were going bad, he would leave, you know, and then the boys would say, Packie, how did the match go? Oh, he says, I left at half time. But Tom says this day, asked him about the game Ardara we're waiting now. He says, that's only a cornbread team. I thought it was a great saying.
Right.
We had the shop over the town, you know.
Aye, we had it, aye. Yeah.
He spent a big part of his life over in Johnny Boyle's Glenties working.
Aye.
Mixed feelings, but he'd rather nearly favour Glenties. But if Ardara won, he would say 2 bad teams. He couldn't win 2 bad teams if Ardara won. There's already Glenties one.
Maybe it was that rivalry that kept them going there during all that time. Because whereas other clubs seem to be struggling, Ardara and Glenties always seem to.
But Ardara always entered the senior championship too, even when they weren't going great, you know. And the championship was always, the day you were beating the championship was a sad day with the town.
Yeah, that's right. Especially
the only day to do a bit, yeah.
Especially if Glenties beat you.
But anyone beat you in the championship, you didn't want to go to the championship. There's a big one.
That's right. Well, you would have got plenty of that, Josie, when you were going round with the bread and all that sort of.
Oh, I was in Kilcara, and Michael Carey myself was the best of friends.
Yeah.
And over 20 minutes we argued on the street one day, outside the shop. But rest Paddy Given was with me. Yeah. The crowd started together. I moved on.
That's true. That's what the life of the whole thing is.
Referees and all the rest of them, thank God, never made a bad friend. I can talk to them all yet.
Yeah, that's good.
Right, all the stick we give them.
Aye, well, you were an out and out supporter there, like Vincent. You know, you were there. That's the supporters. I was talking earlier, but you were keeping an eye on players to see how they were doing and all that sort of thing. Yeah. You know, and but once they're laughing there, he hardly ever missed a game about McCool Park College games or whatever. He was always there, you know, and he could.
Was that Woolley?
That's Woolley, aye.
Oh, mine Woolley was a big when he went, yeah.
Aye.
I remember Ardara playing Glen, and big Damien Gillespie was full forward. 23 games. And big Damien, Jimmy Brennan, full back. It was a tight tussle. Damien was tough for Jimmy. But anyway, Thursday, anyway, Luke Brennan got in to score the goal. And I was up the sideline, and Wally Lafferty was beside me. And there was controversial about the goal anyway. And Wally stepped out looking up, and he says to us, Ardara will be all right. Our fellas on the flag. Harry, you see, the Legion for Ardara. Harry for Ardara. And he said, Ardara will be all right. Our fellas on the flag. And Ardara did get the goal.
Right. Well, funny. Wonders was doing umpire one day. We when I had the wee Lifford under 14 team.
Yeah.
And I'll not say who we were playing, but Winters was umpire, and we had Shea Given in goals. Now Shea was only 11, and he was playing at under 14.
Yeah.
And we hadn't much of a team. Like I put Shea in goals so they could stop a lot. You know, we could never create a lot. You know, but Doherty was having a blinder. And there was one ball came in anyhow towards the end. We were leading by 2 points, and some wee lad had it inside the post, and Shea dived the whole length, and he just got his hands to it and slid it back across from over the line.
Yeah. And
what he says, I hadn't the heart to award it against him. He says that he had given that great a performance. He says,
draw. Yeah.
So he was very knowledgeable with all, you know, the new footballers.
Well,
yourself.
He was a great man for McConnell in Gildea.
Was he?
It stood out for him, yeah.
All the lefties were all great footballers. They all played, you know. But Vincent, did you? I know you were very involved in New York. You managed a team in New York to the intermediate championship.
That was an intermediate team.
Aye.
And we had a lot of players over from Ireland. They used to come over for the summer that time, you know. And we didn't win anything while I was manager, but the year after, after I stepped down, they won the intermediate championship. And that they had good players, but most of the players were over from Ireland for the summer, and some of them were very good players. And we had two fellows playing that time that won All Irelands with Meath. They played midfield for Meath in the 1968 final. That was Vincent Foley and Vincent Lynch.
Right.
They had a big influence on the games, you know. So there was a lot of other players. There was another fellow that won an All Ireland for Cork, played Dave O'Leary or Dave. No, not Dave O'Leary, but I just can't think of his name now. But he won in 1973. He won an All Ireland with Cork.
Right.
And the end fella played for Mayo as well. I just can't. I can't think of names anymore. That's getting old, Packie. You know.
We're all struggling with names now at this age, Vincent. Aye.
Kane Island was another guy that played for.
You're not meeting these people you see enough. That's what happens.
Yes.
You turn anything over on your head every so often, you know.
So
be them.
It was an enjoyable time for me. The only different thing with me was I missed about 11 years of football at home.
Aye.
And at a time when Donegal had a good team in the 60s, you know.
Aye, you went away in 59, didn't you?
60. Went away in 60, back in 71.
Yeah.
And I missed all them years, you know. I was home occasionally for games here, but I felt that I missed a lot out because I didn't see a lot of the good players playing, like Mickey McAloon and them, you know.
That's right.
I've never seen Mickey McAloon playing.
Yeah.
You know, and I did see PJ Flood, who was one of the outstanding players of his time as well. I did see him playing all right. Before I went away and after I came back as well, you know.
Yeah.
So
Aye.
you would have played with all the infamous Packie.
I would have played against them and with them at times there. Edward O'Donnell and myself, when we were midfield. I remember playing PJ Flood and Eddie Gallagher for a while were the county midfield. Then John Boner and Sean Fair. We played both against both of them.
Right, you would have done, yes.
In fact, I got the place on the under 21 county team as a result of a performance against Flood.
Right.
At midfield, but you know,
Right.
they played me then at full forward. So that's the way the county team.
Well, I thought your natural position was centre half back, Packie.
Well, so it was. That was. But that was.
What I think you stopped playing fairly early, maybe 28 or 29, were you?
Yeah. The injuries got the better of me, Vincent. My both knees cartilages were gone.
Right.
The cartilage 3 times in one knee and twice in the other knee. You know.
Oh, so that's what finished you, Packie.
That finished me. Yeah, bad knees. Nah.
You had a great game, Packie, against St. Joseph's. Yourself and Patrick Gilday. We beat St. Joseph down in Ardara. You made that day.
Yes, that was a funny day there.
Great fun.
Aye, Patsy, that's Joe, Larry, God rest him, used to call them the Ulster team. You speak the Ulster team. The 5 of the Ulster team, you know, that was the funny thing about it.
You had a good game that day. You had a good game that day. Yeah.
Yes, today Frankie Campbell backed into McShay and the ball and all ended up in the net.
That's right, Frank. Yeah, Frank, that was Frank. That's one big change. The full forwards was a different game.
That was great. He got the goal. Nothing wrong with the goal.
You shake him down on and Mooney scored a couple of goals for Ulster. Charlie Mooney.
Oh,
They'll take him out and let the ball hop over him. They were fast to get it inside.
Charlie done a lot for the club, didn't he? Too. Still doing it, of course. They're all doing it.
There's one game we played Glenties in the Manilas Cup final. I don't think you were playing, but the whole week Patrick Gilday was injured. I think your Kieran was injured. Every day there was a new one injured. You know, like we were going to struggle and playing Glenties and Glen in the Manilas Cup final.
Right.
So I went down in Yarn. That was the time that things weren't going good. I went down in Yarn to the bread van and I was gathering players. I got the boys in Rospeg were always available. We were stuck in. I thought I would get Michael Gallagher, but I couldn't get Michael Gallagher. Yeah. But Vincent Rankin, young Vincent Rankin, he hadn't played for 4 or 5 years, but somebody told me he had been playing quite well with units.
Right.
So Vincent got him out for me. And he played centre half back, he played the blinder. And I always mind, we were 1 point up and we had a gale behind us in the first half.
Yeah.
So it was looking great. But struggled on anyways. The game went on, and the last kick of the game came in high, and Josie, God rest Josie.
Yeah.
And Josie, Terence Craig went back about 10 yards to take a run at Josie, like what you said, to put it all in.
Right.
But Josie got the left shoulder to the upright, and he came in, and he hopped at Josie, and the final whistle went, and we won it.
Right.
We won the game. We had a big night that night. It was a good one. Nailers Cup, but it wasn't expected. Yeah.
So there are the things that
before that day, the Saturday before that game, God rest Michael O'Donnell that died there.
Yeah.
He was job as yourself. He was coming home. He was coming home the Saturday. I lifted him in Lahi. God rest Paddy Given was with me too, and I was like, how is fixed for tomorrow, you know. Full, complete plan. Now, I never let on, but I knew the way we were fixed. Yeah. But things worked out all right anyway in the end.
They're the things that keeps the club going and keeps the spirits up, you know. The unexpected ones and doing something special.
There were a lot of good players. I'll tell you, man, we had another fine player, but we didn't get enough out of him. Aidan Miguel, or Andy Miguel.
And McGill, that's right.
Aidan had the least football ability of Big Pat, and with the club got far more out of him than they got out of any of the rest of them.
He was a great man to mark, Aidan. You know, he could
was tough.
He would put stick on somebody.
Yes, Brennan at his best, Aidan could always handle him. You mean the year we won the championship, did we beat Bundoran?
Yeah.
The replay.
That's right.
Brennan never smelt it for the two game. Aidan was on him. He had him under control. He couldn't do anything on Aidan.
That's right. He was a brilliant man to mark.
A tight mark. Yeah.
So Vincent, you came back from America then, and you got stuck in again, and you have been involved in the club now for a long time. You were vice chairman in different jobs and held the committees and what have you.
I was chairman for 1 year, the year after I came home in 1972, but I really didn't have the time to give to the club at that time, you know.
You were working a lot at that time.
Yeah, well, I had too much on my plate, you know, trying to get a house built and one thing or another, you know, and trying to start to make a living as well, you know. So I didn't have enough time to give to the club. And at that time, the club had undertaken a job down at the football field, the old football field, the draining and all that.
Right.
And I personally thought at that time that, you know, it was a lost cause. But it turned out anyway that I was wrong, and that the old field turned out that it was quite good in later years, you know.
That's true. You know, I hadn't much hope for it myself indeed at the time either, because having played in it and everything, you knew the failings.
They knew the feelings there that it was a soft.
They did a super job to bring it
back. A very good job, and you know, Big Paddy and Joe Larry and a lot of other fellas went down with spades and shovels at that time to make drains, you know.
Yeah.
And, they did quite a good job on it at the time, but then in later years there was a better job done on it, and you know.
That's right.
It was. It turned out good, and it's great for the club to have the two pitches now.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Two great pitches, really.
Great, and the fact that the club has such an impressive place down there in Kentucky is just unbelievable, you know.
Isn't it?
And that there's no, as far as I know, there is absolutely no debt. All the debts were all cleared of that, just near enough when it was finished, you know.
Aye, that was wonderful.
And very few clubs would have that to say, and I think that's down to the management and handling of a few people here in the club.
That's right.
They worked night and day.
They did. Aye,
to see that through, you know.
All voluntary work.
All voluntary work, yes.
Yeah.
You know, we were fortunate.
Charlie Mooney did a lot. It was nearly, the meetings were even held in his van, you know. But then Columbus never came back then to give a great injection to the club. Columbus work was endless and it's still working. Yeah.
Still working away. Aye, that's right.
Like, and he carried it. He got a great push from Columbus. He put on big effort.
Yeah.
We nearly. He was telling me he was going down to play golf. My father, it was a bad day for golf. He said, you couldn't play golf today. You should go to AGMs on. And he was forced in to take the chairman.
Right.
And that was beginning. That is there since. Yeah.
The commitment was terrific.
He's a special now. Yeah.
He is. Yeah. I've many happy memories of Clumba and John Joe Doherty and myself coming from Dublin to play and going back on Sunday night. You know, it was
John Joe was a hardy player himself.
He was. There were two great men. I played a lot of football with them in Dublin too. You know.
That's right. Yeah.
In teams.
You fellas were probably playing illegally in Dublin, were you, Packie?
Not at all. We never.
Don't be saying that.
You can tell us now, Packie. We won't tell anybody.
And Donegal.
We played most of a civil service, you know, the junior team.
Right, yeah.
We trained with them as well, you see. So that was.
You remember, Packie? You remember Liam Mullen, Donegal, God rest him?
I do, sure. Aye.
He was great dancers, but he was in charge of minors.
Yeah.
And
mm.
But he said to me, we played Ballyshannon, Donegal Town all day, and Conal Hawhey. He isn't doing much, but the chances against Ballyshannon, he was over age,
Yeah.
But that was under 16. Then minor came up, and we were playing. Liam says to me, one thing I can never understand, how a man's under 16 this year, and 2 years' time he's not under 18. Early to
We trained for the 1965 junior final in Ballyshannon, which unfortunately we lost by a point.
That's the one day that Paddy O'Donnell played for Ardara. One game.
Yeah, we missed a lot that day. We must have been at a stage, And we trained, Clumba and John Joe and myself trained with Civil Service Junior team, and they had a great trainer there. It was Jimmy Juan of Armagh and Patsy McGardy of Leitrim. They were training, and Larry Gillen of Longford, who played against us at the stage in the National League. They were there. They were the senior players, so we'd. But it was good to get the odd game. You played there, you see, at 11:30 on a Sunday morning. That's the time the matches were in a Phoenix Park or some club ground, And then you went to Co Park in the afternoon. That's what was mostly the routine,
Michael came home to England for that game, Ballyshannon, didn't he?
He did, and I was looking at
He wasn't long away that time, I don't think.
No.
And
no.
John McHugh was home.
He played under PJ Flood that day, and PJ scored 3 points and Michael scored 3 points. And the scoring wasn't that high altogether, but both of them were in midfield.
There's a point, because with them boys home, we were expecting we could have won it,
Yeah. In actual fact, Michael celebrated his 80th birthday there on the 14th.
That's right.
Last week.
I was speaking to him the night down the field there. He stands it well.
He's sticking it well. I mean, he's for a man that's 80 now.
He's a young man for 80.
Aye, he is. He's
strong. He was a strong man too.
He was, because he boxing and everything. He got into boxing in a big way.
Yeah.
Football, and that takes a lot out of you. He used to spar with Johnny Prescott and Bunny Johnson and them boys. They were fighting for the British heavyweight title.
Oh, but that was actually
brought in by George Biddles to spar, because he was a middleweight, you see, faster, and they wanted somebody, to be fast against the heavyweight,
Yeah.
We had a lot of experience like that, but that's sore on you, the boxing, sore on you.
Oh,
he had a lot of professional fights.
I had quite a few.
He did, yeah.
He was the box Chris Finnegan who won the gold for England at the Olympics, and then Michael was training for that, and then Chris Finnegan, he broke his hand in the game, and the fight had to be called off, and then Michael had hurt himself a bit as well, and he knows what he decided at that stage. But it was too much. There was too much, and he gave it up. Went back and he played football for a while before he retired from the boxing altogether. But that's all part of the scene. But it's been wonderful. You were talking about the whole thing in Ardara there now. You have the great setup down in Kentucky, and the club and the GA playing a great part in the whole communities here in Ireland. It's wonderful the way. One time we were worried that this thing's not going to last way back. We were always concerned that. I mean, I can remember 50 years or more ago. If this isn't done and that isn't done, this is going to fall, But little did we realise that it's getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
And now the women are playing a big part.
The GAA was always populated by very good people, Packie.
Yeah.
There were people that were very loyal in that they were very kind people as well, because if anybody was in a spot of bother at all, the GAA would always back them up, and it didn't matter what club you came from.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh, everybody helped, you know.
Yeah, that holds true.
It still is that way inclined, you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
There was another thing about Ardara, fairness. When the selectors, the county selectors were in it, like the thing wasn't the way you like it, you know. But Ardara, every club was putting forward players for the county team, you know.
Yeah.
But fairness, Ardara never, any player Ardara ever put, he was nearly justified. He justified his selection, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
If Ardara thought they weren't county standard, they weren't putting every fellow forward, you know. There were some of the clubs put up fellas that would never make a county player, you know.
That's
but
right.
Any player ever played for the county from Ardara justified his selection then.
Aye, that's quite right. That's quite right. Aye.
And there was also players from Ardara that deserved to be on the county and didn't get on the county team.
Yeah.
You know, just because the club wasn't very forceful in putting their name forward, you know.
Aye. Well, you see, the system at the time, Vincent, was that every division had a selector, you know, and it was like being a county councillor. You had to deliver for your
own club,
your area. No other, you wouldn't be there the next day.
Well, I'll tell you, Patrick Gilday was Patrick Gilday should have been on the county, I would say.
Aye.
There were pressure on them to put him on.
Yeah.
And Gill was playing at the time.
Yeah.
What did they do? All the Ballyshannon fellas were on it, you see.
That's right.
They put on Patrick, but they took off Cahill.
Yeah.
Afraid Cahill and him put anything together, then the Ballyshannon ones were starving, like you would get nothing from them, you know.
It was her.
They took off Cahill, put on Patrick.
Yeah.
You know.
No, some good players. Peter Oliver too at a stage. You know, he was a club in '72, but like
he was one of the forwards on the under-21 county team.
He was,
yeah.
He should have got his chance. He would have made a good senior player, you know, at a time, you know, and then
would have been better than ever was if he had to go playing for the county.
He had more skill like than any of them. So I had all that injustice, but I discovered I was in there for 3 years then as a selector. McConnell and Hannigan and Sean O'Donnell, and see what was happening. That was all about getting somebody from the area on the team, not the best footballers. So
it wasn't.
That's why I took a motion to convention after that to have the team manager pick the county team.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that has its own things going forward, but at least, you know, there's a better chance that the good footballers will be brought forward, you know. And that's the way it seems to be the best system. Everybody's.
Well, I believe since that system came into being that we have had better county teams.
Yeah.
And when our county got to even to All Irelands and that, you couldn't say that the best team wasn't playing.
That's right. That's right.
You know,
that's great.
The other system that was in before that would never have happened.
No. Well, one day we were at I think it was McKenna Cup game. It was in Oma, I think. Either Oma, I think it was Oma. And there was 5 selectors arguing out on the field about a certain player as to who should go in.
Yes.
And that's the day that I'd made up my mind. This is crazy. Here we are, 5 selectors arguing about that the game's starting in half an hour, and you're arguing about who's going on when the team manager should be able to call the shot.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. A far better system.
That is the straw broke the camel's back for me.
For you, yeah.
I remember going over, I was sent over then to give the team to the press, and there was a particular player that we argued about, and the big Liam McDowell used to be the RT correspondent from County Down. He house down about Kincastle down there, and even his holiday home. But Liam was a good carrier. And he says to me, I give him the team, and I came to this particular player, and Liam says, says, Daddy, let him play.
The daddy let him play.
Daddy, let him play. So, I'm not going to the background, but it was that kind of nonsense, that was going on. So it was time to call out and all that stuff.
It was.
That's good.
So.
All right. So eventually, the Ardara club made history in their own ways, getting Sam to town with Anthony Malloy, and Gavigan in '92 had the breakthrough. I suppose all our era, Vincent and Josie, we spent most of it talking about when would we win in All Ireland, and
people said, making a joke that said if Donegal ever won the All Ireland, the Queen will be presenting the
that was Paddy Van Brosnan with that comment.
It was a Paddy Van that made that.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was Peter Quinn presented the cup, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Man.
Anthony Malloy, and that was a proud day in Donegal that day, I'll tell you.
I got when you join Viber on these mobile phones, all the other Viber users get so we text saying, and I got one when Anthony Malloy joined fairly recently, and it said Anthony Malloy has now joined Viber. Send them a text.
Right.
So you can choose not to send them something, or you can choose to send them something. And I just thought for a minute, you know what, I'll send Anthony. Sam is for the hills.
Right.
So that's all. I'm sure he had a smile when he seen it.
Yes, yeah.
Famous words when he collected the Sam Maguire.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Remember when he was accepting the cup, he said, "Geez, Mary's warm out there."
That's right. The president. That's right. Some great moments. You could talk all night. There's a wonderful history. The Père August Pobble, that book. It's a wonderful. That's a wonderful coverage of the whole. Up until Centenary year. There'll be more to add to it eventually, but there's a wonderful, interesting history attached to the whole Ardara club from day one. And the great records that were kept in many cases from all the initial stuff. Writing to the county board for permission to enter after they joined the club, with the ordering of the jerseys and all this kind of stuff, and where the boots were bought. And for people, Ardara people who's interested in the GA or the history of the parish, it's a wonderful record.
Yeah.
It's very good altogether, And it covers, there's very little left out in that book.
That's right. The
time up until it was published,
Yeah.
So and a lot of stuff that most people wouldn't know anything about at all,
That's right. It's well worth going back through, because you would forget stuff that's in there.
You would, of course, yeah.
And it's very important stuff, but it's wonderful to have a great record. What would you like to see for the future, Josie?
Oh, we'd like to see Ardara coming up and getting Dr. McGuire again for starters.
Yeah.
Come back again. It'll happen again. We'll have to have patience. We lost too many good players together. If you take the Dohertys, the Boyles, Jonathan Boyle scored 9 points in the final, don't forget.
That's right.
Ever in the Dohertys. Hard to place players like that overnight. You'll have to wait. You'll have to be patient.
Yeah, there's a lot of work been put into them, and underage and everything now. So
underage,
that'll show.
That's the answer. Look at underage and the thing will come right, hopefully.
Yeah. What would your own hopes for the club be, Vincent? Your son John is one of the leading lights, of course.
Well, I would hope that you know, the club would keep on the track it's on. It's on the right track at the moment, but we do have a problem in the club, and I know this from John to a certain extent. The numbers of young people in the rural clubs now are not as great as those in the big clubs like St. Eunice, where there's a big population.
Yes.
In an instance there, I discovered somebody from a McCool club called up Josie Doherty there a couple of weeks ago to see could he organise an under-9 game between McCool's and Ardara.
Right.
George had done a bit of research anyway, and he discovered that he had only 9 players at the age of under 9. And when he called your man, he says, "I can't play because we don't have enough players." He says, "How many players have you?"
Right.
So he said, "I have 9." And your man said back to him, "Well," he said, "we have 28 in McCool's."
Right.
So that's the difference now in these clubs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where and St. Eunice are in the same situation. They have the numbers.
Yeah. Well, there's numbers. I remember we did research the time I was in the county board, the time that Letterkenny Gaels were started.
Yes.
There was big objections there that time by St. Eunice and all that. But there was enough of a population in Letterkenny, and that's years ago. I think they celebrated 25 years or something there, Letterkenny Gaels.
Yes.
They had enough members for 4 clubs.
They had.
Aye. So Letterkenny could still take another club, you know, and possibly McCool's if you were to look closely at it, you know. And so the rules thing's tough, you know. It's Kilcar and everybody's kind of on a limit there, aren't they?
They're all going to suffer in the years to come.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The towns with the bigger population, they're fortunate in that they have the players that are in that play, say in a county final. Right. They're the best players.
Yeah.
And usually they would have enough subs that would get on any club team in the county, and they can't get on.
That's right.
This team, you know, there. So
there's the acres of underage players coming forward to those clubs too.
That's right. Yeah, you know. So
that's it.
So
well, it's wonderful to talk to both of you, and it's great that the tradition is carrying on. 100 years later, all those people that started out on the journey, I'm sure they'll be quite proud of what's happening down in Kentucky now. We had a National League final there once. 1936,
I think it.
And then we had Donegal played Longford, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And a National League game, National League final, and we had a National League game down there. You know, in the early days, there was a lot happened there. The Dan Ward Cup was presented and still being used as the minor trophy, and the first game was played in Ardara as a result of that. You know, for the cup. And there's lots and lots of great tales there about all that.
Yes, so
well, it'll all hopefully carry on when we're long and far away.
Hope so. We're long. So thanks very much, Packie, anyway, for giving this opportunity. I don't know, you know, whether we talked sense or rubbish, but nevertheless.
It's just lovely to talk to you, Josie. Yeah, I'm going to say
that opportunity, you know. And
much.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Josie. Bye. Josie just saying bye-bye.
All
right. Thanks very much, man. And a very happy Christmas to you.
And the same to you, Packie, and many of.
God bless. God bless.
Bye-bye.